Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the ICC Sisters podcast, where we help our Muslim community develop a balanced mind and lifestyle. My name is Mariame, and I am joined today by two other sisters from our sister halaqa, Yusra.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Yusra. I am the speech coordinator of the iccsisterspodcast Sisters Halaka. I work with amazing speakers such as Rana, Jana, Lilia, and Gawa. And I am also a member of the Dawa team. So I work with the reverts, and we're trying to create a community for everyone, and we're trying just to build a strong connection between us.
Thank you, Yusra. And we also have Rana with us.
Assalamu alaikum. So, as Yusra said, I am one of the main speakers of the ICC Sisters Halaka, and I'm also the food coordinator.
Thank you, Rana. So, as always, the content of this episode is cross-checked by the Imam of our community center, especially when it comes to the authenticity of the ahadith. So, the main question that we want to answer today, bi'idhnillah, is how can I be confident to wear the hijab? And it's hard to focus only on one specific part of the religion without having a pragmatic look. So we will try to keep a global view while attempting to answer this question and give to everyone, including ourselves, concrete steps to take in order to get closer to our deen. So we can start first by defining what is the hijab in Islam, because that's important. So Rana, can you talk to us about your understanding based on your research?
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I want to start off by making two things very clear so that we're all on the same page moving forward. So first of all, when I say hijab, I don't mean the typical headscarf we used to wrap our head around with. Hijab, originating from the word hajjaba, means to cover, to conceal, to hide. So when I say hijab, I mean the woman's dress code. The second thing I want to clarify is if you are a Muslim woman, you believe in Allah and His final messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that dress code 100% applies to you. And this is where it gets controversial. Some people might say, it's not written in the Quran that women have to wear a hijab. They're right. It's not explicitly said in the Quran. It is mentioned in a slightly different way. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the woman's dress code in two different surahs in the Quran. First one is in Surah Nur, which is chapter 24, verse 31. It's a pretty big ayah. I invite you guys to read it on your own. However, I want to focus on an important part. The ayah starts with, tell the believing woman to lower their gaze and guard their chastity. And then, وَلْيَضْرِبْنَا بِخُمُورِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. So for those who know Arabic, يَضْرِبْنَا means to hit. Now, don't worry, we're not hitting anybody. But when you hit something or someone, it touches your skin. And that's what it means in this ayah, that it touches the skin. It's on the skin. So what is on the skin? خُمُورِهِنَّ, which comes from the word khimar. It's a piece of cloth which basically covers the whole upper body. You can definitely Google it. It'll give you a more accurate representation. So يَضْرِبْنَا بِخُمُورِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. جُيُوبِهِنَّ is the chest area. So now you know you have to cover your upper body. How about the lower part? Do we just get to wear whatever you want? This is where the second ayah comes in, which is in Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 59. Allah directly speaks to our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where He says, "Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, qul li azwajika wa banatika wa nisa'il mu'minina." O Prophet, ask your wives, your daughters, and believing women, yudnina alayhinna min jalabibihinna, to draw their jilbab over their bodies. So a jilbab is basically a long dress which covers the shape of the woman's body. So there you have it, folks. Next time you hear someone say hijab is not mandatory, hit him with those two ayahs.
Right. So to follow on what you just said, the ayah that you mentioned from Surah Al-Ahzab, there is also a second part to what you mentioned, which is in this way, it is more likely that they will be recognized as virtuous and not be harassed. And Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. So this ayah, not only does it explicitly say to the Prophet ﷺ to order the Muslim ladies to wear the hijab and dress in a certain way, but it explains why. And, the hijab, there is this physical aspect of it, social aspect of it. And there is another one that we need to take into account is that, and this applies also to men, as Muslim, we need to try to reach a level of haya. And what does haya mean? I tried to look for the definition in English, and it brings up many words in English, such as modesty, shyness, decency. But it encompasses all of these words. But to try to really give a better explanation, I will give an example. So let's say Yusra, okay, tomorrow you become a student of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, okay? Will you be able to show off in front of him with your beginner level knowledge?
Nope, no way.
Okay, right. And most people that have a decent mind wouldn't be able to do it. And this is haya, like that feeling of like, I can't even dare to show off in front of him. That's haya. And we can also feel that towards our creator. So just looking at his creation at the macro level, micro level, looking at everything he has provided us, sometimes like we should get to the point where we feel like, how come I can disobey him whereas he did everything to me? Like that's a type of haya. Yeah.
There's also something I heard, which was, if you could see Allah, would you do the things that you do right now? And when I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, like having Allah, you see everything. You see the angels, you can see the day of judgment, you can see the hellfire. Would you still do the things that you're doing right now?
And also, like, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to wear the hijab when I'm older, you know, like I have time. I'm only 16, I'm only 18, I have so much time. But the thing is, you don't know when you're gonna pass away. Like some people like pass away at 16, 17, 18, and they're young. So like you think that you have so much time, like, you know, like they still, like, let's say like they want to wear the hijab, they know it's mandatory, and they want to do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything. They're like, oh no, I have time, you know, I have time. No, you don't know if you have time.
We're so used to seeing people get old and then, you know, they reach the 70s, the 80s, and then they die, that it's so hard for us to accept the fact that there are people around us who are our age and younger that die. We just subconsciously kind of turn off the idea that we could literally die today, tonight. It can happen anytime. Also, when you're gonna die, you're gonna be covered, because that's how Allah wants our bodies to go back to Him. So there's also something I heard was that,
Yeah, I think I know.
you heard too, which was don't make your first day as wearing the hijab your last day on earth.
Since you were talking about this, Yusra, of the fact that sometimes we forget that this life is not eternal, were you at one point, like, in your life thinking like this?
So basically, to answer this question, I'm just going to share my hijab story. So when I first started wearing the hijab, I was 12, and I remember it was like in grade 6. It was in the middle of grade. Like I'm the type of person who does things very impulsively. So like if I'm thinking about wearing the hijab, I'm just gonna do it like the next day. So that's why, like, even when I like started wearing the hijab, it was like in the middle of grade 6, and like people didn't understand the hijab. Like I had my friend who tried to like what are you wearing on your head, like what is this? And I was like, oh, it's the hijab, man, you know, like I was just wearing it like that. And then throughout high school, you know, I was like I was wearing the hijab and I was very confident about it. And then I went to Hijab, and for some reason when I was in Hijab, you know, I started like really falling and like feeling like depressed and everything, and I started like questioning everything around me, and I did not feel comfortable in the hijab anymore. I was like, no, this is not me, this is not representing me, because like when I removed it, I was very like, you know, I was not, you know, praying regularly. I just thought like, oh, like why should I do this, why should I do that? And I didn't feel comfortable.
It doesn't fit with your character.
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't fit with my character. It's like, and then like when I removed the hijab, I told, I think this was around the age of 17, 18. I removed the hijab, you know, there was like a lot of people around me. They're like, why are you doing it? Why are you doing this? And I was like, yeah, it's not me. Like, I don't feel like myself. Like, I feel like a hypocrite.
You told me, because we were in Hijab at that time, we were the same year, and you told me, I just want to take a break to think more about it, understand why I have to wear it, then I will wear it. Yeah. And I remember telling you, okay, so I'll remind you times to times, like, and see if you're actually trying to understand, if you're doing your research.
Yeah, but I was telling you that back then when I was 18, but I wasn't actually thinking it. Because in my head, like even there was somebody who asked me like 7 months ago, like, would you wear the hijab again? And I was like, nope, I'm not wearing it again. No way. You're never going to see me wear the hijab again. This is not like... No, I'm not gonna do it. So when I did remove it at 18, like obviously, like I had my close friends, and I was like, "Don't worry, I'm just discovering myself." And then when I'm comfortable enough, I'm gonna wear it again. But when I did remove it, that was not my intention, because I could have done that wearing the hijab, right? I could have, you know, discovered myself, Islam, whatever, while wearing the hijab. And my friend did tell me that, and I was like, "No, but you don't understand. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, I feel like a hypocrite. Like, the thing is, like." When I felt like a hypocrite, instead of changing myself, I just like changed, like I'm just gonna remove the hijab. Like the problem, and it didn't solve the problem.
Like the problem was the hijab and not you.
Yeah,
right?
like in my head, I thought about that, but at the end of the day, it was me the problem. Like it did
And
not
the
solve
influence
anything.
that you had, and the
Yeah,
influence,
and
because
the influence that I had, I believed, like you know, like especially like because I know like a few ex-hijabis too, and when I talk to them, I feel like there is this feeling of, oh, I'll be a better Muslim if I remove the hijab, because I think one narrative that I heard was that I feel the like I hate the hijab, you know, I don't want to wear it. So and then because I hate the hijab, I hate prayer and I hate reading, let's say the Quran and everything, and it's pushing me away from Islam. So then they're like, oh, if I remove the hijab, and if I remove the hijab and I love my prayer and my Quran more, then that means, like, isn't that better? Like that's the reasoning behind it.
Shaitan is so slick.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I actually hate this mentality, because the sisters who are currently wearing the hijab but are thinking of taking it off, instead of asking yourselves why you should take it off, ask yourselves why you should keep it on. And most of them will say, I don't feel close to Allah. I don't want to feel like a hypocrite, so I'm going to take it off. I hate this mentality, because if I wasn't close to Allah while wearing the hijab, what makes me think taking it off would bring me closer to Him? If anything, it would keep you away from Him. And that's Shaitan's goal. You wearing the hijab could be the only string that connects you with Allah, and Shaitan will do everything to make you take it off.
Yeah, and also because obviously I had that mentality back in the day. So when I did remove it, I can tell you by experience, it did not get closer to Islam. It did not push me to go, especially like the 1 or 2 years after I removed it. It was pretty bad. Like everything I told my friends that I would do, oh no, I'll look into Islam, I'll do this. I didn't do that.
Shaitan, that's what I'm saying.
Like that was just an excuse, guys. Like it was just an excuse. And then I joined the IACC Sisters Halaka. It was not something that I planned to do. Like it was just there, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go. And then I joined the team, and eventually like I got to know like a lot of sisters, you know, who were hijabi themselves, and they were really like I was never forced, like, you know, obviously, like, I'm not wearing the hijab and I'm spending time with a group of girls who are wearing the hijab, and like a lot of people would think that they would come and they would like criticize me, right? But that didn't happen. They just waited for me to come to terms with the hijab on my own. Like here and there, you know, like we had like halakas on like hijab or like talking about the hijab, but no one came up to me and said, why don't you wear the hijab? Like, you're a bad Muslim, you're this, you're that, because they knew it could have pushed me away, you know? Mm-hmm. But since I was just surrounded by a lot of like hijabis, and I was surrounded by like good people, good Muslims and everything, it pushed me towards the hijab. And then randomly one day I just remember like I'm sitting down and I'm like, I want to wear the hijab. I look at my sister and I'm like, I want to wear the hijab. And I look at my dad and my mom, I'm like, I want to wear the hijab. And they're like, you're not joking, right? Like are you serious? And I'm like, no, I'm not joking. And the thing is, since I did wear it before, and I removed it, they were like, maybe you should think about it before you wear it again, because like we don't want you, like, if I wear it and remove it, it's like I'm not respecting the hijab, right? If I do it all the time. So this time, like they said, don't repeat the same mistake you did back in the day. So make sure you're 100% sure about it. So like obviously like people told me like, just think about it first. But I was like, nah, I'm not thinking about it. Like I'm just gonna go do it. Like I said, I'm an impulsive person. And there was also the concept of, I think Jana also did a halaka around that time, mm-hmm. about like, she said the thing that you were saying, like when you're dead, when you die, is that the first time you're going to wear the hijab?
Oh,
like that really hit. That really hit me. And I was like, like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know. Then there was like, and also I feel like for a long time, I was in the belief that hijab is like just a choice. Like, you know, like just a choice. It's not part of Islam. Like I had a hard time accepting that too, like back in the day. Like I was like, I think when I was removing the hijab and I was talking to one of my friends, I was like, yeah, but like if I remove the hijab and I like pray and I read the Quran, like it doesn't change anything. I'm still a good Muslim and everything. Like it's not like important. Like hijab is not an important part of Islam. Like once I accepted that it was part of Islam and it had to be like something I had to do, it was easier for me to wear it. You know, like I'm like, I don't know if you guys saw on social media, a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a choice. It's not part of Islam. It's sunnah. It's this. It's that. It's not. It's fard. You have the choice to wear it or not to wear it. It's
your choice to wear it if you want to wear it or not. But if you're a Muslim, you have to wear it. That if you follow Islam, the rules are the rules. You have to follow the rules. Mm-hmm. Now the choice is, do I want to follow the rules or not?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Like, like prayer is fard too, right?
Right.
So you have the choice to pray or not to pray. Obviously, like, you shouldn't force, like, be like, oh, it's the way you talk to people, right? You shouldn't be like, oh, you're such a bad Muslim because you don't wear the hijab. Like, what's wrong with you? We don't want that conversation. We should be like, oh, like, what do you think about the hijab? Oh, okay. Like, something more like smooth, Like, being smooth is very important in this, guys, because I'm telling you, if you guys are very aggressive, I know a lot of people think if you're aggressive and you like force people to do things that it's good. No, it's not good. You're gonna push people away. And if somebody is pushed away from wearing the hijab or from Islam because of your aggressive behavior, the sin's on you, man, or woman, whatever.
Yeah. And also, if we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even when he was introducing little by little Islam, he didn't start straight up with what you can do and what you cannot do. The forbidding actions. And subhanAllah, like the first ayats which were revealed in Mecca, they were all about spirituality, like growing the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they were mostly about the Day of Judgment, hellfire, paradise, the stories of the prophets before, just so that people at that time could understand the purpose. Who is my creator? What is this religion? All of that. And it sets that foundation so that around 13 years later, then the ayat started to being revealed to the Prophet about what they have to do and what they didn't have to do. So just to show us that Islam also is being very, again, realistic, and human beings, you have to go gradually and start with the priorities, the foundation. That's important. So what you said, Yusra, about having the conversations, listening to other people and trying to see like what is the thing that makes them doubt and what do they need to understand. Like that's more important, I believe, than just talking about putting the hijab and how to wear it. Like it's more important to understand why. Then once the person is convinced, then you can go ahead and look at, okay, like how you can reintroduce it in your life or just start to wear it.
Like one advice like I would give to myself would be, before removing your hijab, just perfect your prayers, look into Islam again. Like before taking that drastic decision, work on yourself. Work on yourself before, And
what do you mean by work on yourself?
Like work on yourself in the sense, start reading the Quran, understand the Quran, understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, like a lot of people, a lot of Muslims are just born into the religion and they don't revisit the religion. They think, oh, like I'm just like, they take it for granted, They're like, oh, I'm Muslim, I pray like 5 times a day, but do they have that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do they actually have that connection? Or is it just because, oh, I'm born into this religion?
And to get that connection, like you said, you need to understand who's Allah. What are his attributes? And just by looking at his creation, like that also gives you a lot of information about who he is. And like you said, once you believe that Allah is my creator, the Prophet is my messenger, consequently, like you have to follow what he ordered you to do.
I relate to your journey a lot, and I actually had a similar path. So I've been wearing the hijab for over 8 years now. However, I only felt like a hijabi a few months ago. So I will be getting back to this later on, but to put you into context, it was right before I had started high school. So it was around, like Yusra, around 12, I guess. And there's this idea going around in our household, which I thought was the smartest thing ever. And my sister did it as well, which was for us to wear the hijab as soon as we enter high school, even if we didn't hit puberty yet, because new school means new people. So they'll be used to seeing me with the hijab throughout the years. Whereas if I had waited until I would hit puberty, which for my case was around the 3rd year, students would have already seen my hair and it would have drawn a lot more attention and questions. So anyways, it was just way simpler to wear as soon as I entered high school. And back then, I was quite young. I didn't know what was good for me, but my mom had made it very clear that if I didn't wear the hijab after hitting puberty, I would have to bear the sins of every single non-mahram man that sees me. So I was like, no thanks, let's wear it. I remember my first day, I was quite literally mortified. I was on my way to a math center called Kuman. And I remember I was so scared, what will people think? These people have seen my hair before. They're going to say something. They're going to look at me weird. I wish I could say something had happened just for the plot, but literally no one cared. They couldn't care less. It was all just in my head. And so eventually I kind of got used to the hijab and it slowly became my hair, kind of, right? Fast forward a couple of years, you know, I'm growing, I'm gaining consciousness about my body, people around me. So I started getting into fashion. And I remember I wanted people to think that you can wear the hijab and still be trendy. I thought, you know, I was so smart there, you know. The idea in itself is not wrong per se, meaning if you like the color brown, then you can wear brown, it's fine. If there are shoes that are more trendy than others and you like them, go ahead, knock yourself out, wear them. But the clothing don't fit with the hijab at all. I would even go as far as to say that all trends don't even correlate with the hijab. They were never made to fit with the hijab in the first place. So I had trouble accepting that back then. And hijab slowly became a burden for me more than anything. The worst thing about this entire journey is that I was slowly getting worse without even noticing. Each year was worse than the year before. So you can imagine how lost I was by the time I got to senior year. I wish I had known starting high school meant the start of my downfall. Senior year was the year I had officially lost myself. At this point, you know, the fits weren't correlating with the hijab, but that wasn't the only problem. The behavior wasn't correlating with the hijab either. I felt like, exactly like Yusra said, I felt like my personality didn't fit with the personality that a typical hijabi would have. I was making friends from left to right. I didn't even know them. I just wanted friends. And that's the effect of having, you know, good friends versus bad friends. I was slowly getting dragged into this hole of sins until sinning literally became a habit. So although I was so lost and constantly sinning, I noticed that when I was encountering certain sins, some of them I would step back for a second because I had that feeling of guilt while wearing the hijab. And I would tell myself, if I were to say this or do that, I don't think it would look good as a hijabi, you know? Maybe I should back away from this. And so overall, this was my journey up until a year ago. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Do this. And no, I have to stay away from this. But then I'm doing other sins. So that was pretty much my journey.
I also wanted to add one thing. You know, when I was having conversations about, you should wear the hijab and everything, what's stopping you, okay? And one of the answers that came a lot is, I'm not, like, my personality is not good right now. I want to work on myself right now and then wear the hijab. Like, that's stopping me from wearing the hijab. And I just wanted to hear, like, maybe like Rana or Mariame's take on this.
So I think it's important to point out that, you know, like we said, when you wear the hijab and you're going to the masjid, it becomes easier to wear it than in public. But I think it's important to mention that deep down, you will never actually be ready to wear the hijab. I have to mention, like, you're never mentally, you can be mentally prepared for it, but deep down, there's always going to be that feeling that, oh, I'm not ready. This is such a big step. I don't know if I can do this or not. So I think it's important to point out the things that you must take into account before wearing the hijab. And so for my take on this, I would say that, first of all, you are not wearing the hijab because of men. And this is something a lot of non-Muslims think, is that hijab is only meant to hide your figure from men's gaze, and this is why they see it as a form of oppression. This is also why I shared my story, because although it did protect me from unwanted stares to a certain extent, hijab mainly saved me from myself, my own desires, which is something we don't talk about enough. The nafs. I want this, I want that, I want to wear this, I want to wear that. When you are not wearing the hijab, it is very easy to sneak in the crowd. But when you wear the hijab, you stand out. You look like a stranger. And subhanAllah, there's even a hadith from the Prophet, peace be upon him, who said, جاء الإسلام غريبا وسيعود غريبا فطوبى للغرباء. Islam came as a stranger and it will leave as a stranger, so glad tidings to the strangers. And this is also why modernizing hijab is harmful. You're assuming that the hijab needs to be updated so that it fits with today's standards. You're going against the whole point of the hijab. Because did Allah not know that there would come a time where wearing the correct hijab would look so weird, unfamiliar, and strange to society? So, of course he did. That's the point. Hence the usage of the word stranger in the hadith. So when you wear the hijab, you are a stranger to society. You are also subconsciously accepting the fact that you represent Islam. The first thing people notice when you go out is your hijab. When you go out, you're basically saying, hi, hello, I am Muslim, and this is what Muslims do. Society will automatically make you bear that responsibility, and although you may call this a burden, I know I did back then, I now call this a mechanism holding me accountable, keeping me steadfast, reminding me as soon as I'm about to slip, I get that feeling of guilt in my head. That guilt, you may hate it on the spot, but once you look back and realize how many times it pulled you out of horrifying outcomes, you will literally thank God for it. That guilt is iman, and it's strengthened when you're wearing the hijab. Now, this is not to say that hijab is the only way to have a strong iman, but for the purpose of this topic, I'm trying to make you see the hijab from a different perspective and not just from the common misconception of wearing it because of men. The second thing you must know before and while wearing the hijab is that you can wear the hijab and in front of everyone you look like a hijabi, but deep down you don't feel it. Remember when I said I've been wearing the hijab for over 8 years and I only felt like hijabi a few months ago? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You feel like you lack the benefits. You don't fully understand why you're wearing it. It feels heavy. You feel like it doesn't match with your character. There's a solution for that. The reason why I felt like this for so long is because I missed something incredibly important. Basically, the whole point of the hijab. The excuse I hear a lot from girls who are not wearing the hijab is, I'm not religious enough. Let me tell you, if you had to attain a certain level of iman, you would not be seeing a lot of hijabis today, including me. However, there is one thing you need to know before you decide to wear the hijab. You need to find a middle. Don't go to either extremes, meaning don't wear the hijab because it's a trend or because Abdullah happens to like hijabis, and completely disregard the purpose of the hijab. And don't go to the other extreme, which is assuming you have to become some type of sheikha with high level of knowledge before wearing the hijab. Both are simply wrong. So find the middle, which I also like to call the prerequisite of wearing the hijab. And Mariame also mentioned it a lot. The one thing you should know before committing to the hijab is to know who you're doing it for. I know it may sound silly. I know I'm doing it for Allah. He's my creator and all. But how many of us actually know Allah? Because I thought I did back then, but turns out I knew nothing. Knowing the one you're doing this for is your foundation. Just like Yusra said, to build a house, you need a foundation, a base. And that house represents all the acts of worship, including wearing the hijab, praying, reading the Quran, etc. Now, if that foundation is not strong enough, that house of yours will start shaking. Pieces will start falling. Eventually, the whole house might collapse. So as soon as you know who you're doing this for, you know why you're doing it, and you're most likely keeping your hijab on. You only do it for the sake of Allah, and if you do it for any other reason, then it becomes so easy to start questioning why you're wearing it in the first place. Because let me tell you, when the time comes, and it will come, where it gets super hot outside, and everyone around you is naked, man and woman, everyone's wearing shorts, everyone's wearing tank tops, and you're the only one covered from head to toe. You're fighting through the heat, you're fighting through the dirty looks, you're tired, you're frustrated. The only thing getting you through this is your connection with Allah. No one else, nothing else. It's remembering, is the one I'm doing this for seeing what I'm going through right now? Always. Right there. He's here 24/7. He sees everything. And the beauty of it all is that you don't even have to say to Allah that you're tired. He already knows. He knows what's in the heart. Now, let me tell you, Abdullah could never.
I just wanted to add, she says a very strong point about iman and everything. And one thing we know that throughout your life, sometimes you're gonna be it's normal to go up and down, up and down, up
yes,
and down, up and down.
Yeah.
And obviously, let's say you start wearing the hijab when your iman is at an all-time high, okay, and then you reach a low, and you're like, are you gonna remove the hijab just because you reached a low? No. One thing I want to say is that when I start wearing the hijab again, okay, when I know that when I start wearing the hijab, I wasn't perfect. No one is perfect. We all have our flaws, okay? And sometimes I do come off I have a strong personality, so I'm not a soft person, just by nature. And when I told someone close to me that I started wearing the hijab, and even before saying congratulations, I'm proud of you, whatever, the person said, oh, well, what about your personality? That was the first reaction of this person. And like obviously, because now I'm not doing it for, now I'm 22 and I'm not doing this for like people, like I don't care about criticism, whatever, and I'm doing this for Allah. So back, I feel like if somebody told me the same thing when I was 17, 18, I would have cried. I'd been like, oh, you see, like I can't do this, guys, I can't do this, I can't live like this, so, and then I'm like, you know what, I know like, I have this flaw, but that's not gonna stop me from wearing the hijab. Okay, that's not gonna stop me from. In fact, like now that I'm hijabi, and if sometimes I get angry or something, I'm like, I can't. It's not good. It's not good if I get too angry. I have to be like a bit softer,
To add to what you said about the question that you got about your personality, actually, I do know someone who removed the hijab because of that, and I do want to address that. Because I don't know where this comes from. The fact that because you wear the hijab, you need to have a certain personality. I did mention earlier, we need to have haya. Yes, we need to have respect when behaving with people, especially like people from the opposite gender. But your personality can remain the same. If you are extrovert in nature, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with the opposite too. And if we look even at the Sahabiyat, the time of the Prophet ﷺ, one of them, which I admire a lot, is called Nusayba bint Kab. She's also known as Imara. And mashallah, this lady, she was going with men, fighting with them during the battles. And at that time, the swords were so heavy. Like if people from our time now try to lift it, they need many men to lift one sword from that time. It wasn't something easy. And they were fighting for hours, sometimes days, against the enemies. And she was fighting with them. She even got injured so many times while trying to protect the Prophet ﷺ. So this woman, like, isn't she strong? Obviously she is. And the Prophet even was encouraging her to display her courage and to take part of their discussions, whether they were political or whether he was like teaching them about the religion. He wanted her to be there. And she was also spreading the knowledge after. So this shows that our religion doesn't stop you from being who you are in terms of your personality traits. You can stay who you are as long as you're displaying respect and haya. This shouldn't be an obstacle to wear the hijab. Now, I want to ask a question that is also very important. Like, as human beings, we are social in nature. We are afraid of how people are going to judge us. It is something that we value a lot, right? And it takes time to do, like you said, Yusra, to focus on more what Allah thinks of me. And what would you suggest to someone who's listening to our podcast and is afraid of being judged by their surrounding or someone specific in their surrounding?
So first thing is like the people that you think are going to judge you and are going to, pass comments and it's stopping you from wearing the hijab, just to let you know that most likely 5 years down the road, the people aren't even going to be in your life. Okay, they're not going to be there. Like even in my life, I feel like the friends who stick to you, the friends who stay with you, are the friends that you have similar values as you, And also another thing, like, why would you have a surrounding that would stop you from worshiping Allah? Like if your friend group or if your surrounding is someone that's stopping you from being like the best version of yourself, then you should reconsider that. Because like we talked about before, like when I removed the hijab, it was my surrounding is very important, like people who you hang out with is very important. So your true friends would never judge you. Your true surrounding would never judge you. And if you have like, acquaintances or whatever, like why would their opinion matter to you? Like who are they to you? Are they greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you? No, they're not. So why would you even consider that, And the thing is, I remember like, giving an advice to one of the girls who was thinking about like removing the hijab. And I told her like, if you remove it because of people's opinions of you, like any big decision you're going to take in life, you're going to be too scared to make the right decision because you care about others. So I feel like when you wear the hijab and when you're being yourself, it's a way to build your personality, You're strong, your values are strong, like what you believe in is strong. You don't care,
And remember that nothing, absolutely nothing, and no one can make you wear the hijab, can make you feel happy while wearing it, can make you feel confident while wearing it, unless you have that connection with Allah. Because when you're close to Allah, you don't see what everyone else is seeing. Matter of fact, you go to not even care what these people think. This was something I was struggling with when I first started wearing the hijab, What would people think? What would people say? When your connection with Allah is strong, you grow to not even care about the why. why I have to wear the hijab, why I have to pray 5 times a day. Just knowing that Allah told me to do so is enough for me to commit to it forever. When you build that connection with Allah, a shield starts building itself around you, separating you from everyone else and all their negativity. And in that shield, it's just you and Allah, no one else. The stronger the bond, the stronger the shield becomes. And it made me think about the niqabis that you see walking outside. There's very little nowadays, but alhamdulillah, there's still some. And they're out there. And I was thinking, if one of them woke up one day and said, you know what, I want to wear the niqab because it looks cute, then she most definitely doesn't wear it today. I'm not going to sit there and tell you guys, wear your hijab. It's all rainbows and unicorns out there. It really isn't. Let's be real. It is rough out there, especially in Western countries where people have such a hard time accepting Muslims. You will get dirty looks. You might even get nasty comments. So you need your weapon. You need that strength. Think of it like this. You're going into the battlefield. You have no idea who you're fighting. You don't have your weapon in hand. Versus you're going into the battlefield. You know who you're fighting. You've got your favorite weapon in hand. And you know how to defend yourself. The same analogy applies when you decide to wear the hijab in public. Now, of course, it's not the same intensity. You're not actually fighting for your life out there. But the point is, if you go out wearing the hijab and you barely know who you're doing it for, a simple dirty look from an ignorant person will be enough to make you uncomfortable to a point where you start questioning why you're wearing the hijab in the first place. And that's exactly when shaitan slips in. This actually happened to me at the mall. I work, so to put you into context, I work at a stand and at my local mall. And out of nowhere, an old man, like literally looks like my grandpa. He came out of nowhere and he started staring at me like intensely, right? And then I looked at him and I had that feeling. I felt like really, I felt the urge to film. I don't know. I knew something was going to go off. I knew it. So I picked up my phone. I started recording. And then I was like, sir, can I help you with anything? And he was like, he looked at me and then he was like, do you know that in France, Marine Le Pen is actually against the hijab? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, you're going to have to take it off. And I was like, okay, but this is happening in France. We're in Quebec, guys. What's going on? And he said, no, I'm going to become the boss of this mall and I will make you take it off. And I was like, okay, sir, you do what you got to do. And he got so irritated. And I remember I focused on laughing. I didn't want to take it to heart because I knew that what he was looking for is to make me angry. He wanted a reaction out of me. So I was forcing myself to laugh. And I remember afterwards, he got really aggressive, and he started calling hijabis sexual predators. I don't even know where that came from, but he just said it, and I was like, okay. And the whole video, it literally went viral. And I remember when I came back home, like when it happened, I was just there, like laughing and smiling, all that stuff. But it's when I got home that it literally hit me. I was like, I just got harassed. And I literally cried, and I was like, "What? Why? What's going on?" All this stuff, and it really had a huge impact on me. It really affected me, and this happened a few years ago. But if that had happened, now, I don't think it would have affected me as much as it did back then. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be hurt. I feel like I would remember, where this is coming from. I'm being tested, and the reward for it is great. Like.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. You're gonna laugh at me. Maybe I was living under a rock, but I didn't see your video until a couple of days ago. It went viral. You said 2 years ago, but one of our sisters showed it to me, and I recognized that man because I was also working in this mall.
Really?
And just so you know, like I think he has a disability, like a mental disability.
That's what the cops told me. They're like, maybe he didn't take his medication.
Because he was passing a lot in front of the store that I was working at, and I knew he had a disability. And so this also shows that sometimes it's not always their fault. By looking at it this way, you won't take it as personal, because the person might be very ignorant. They might have a disability like this man. And so, yeah, it's not always against us personally. Mm-hmm. It might just be a thought that they have, a wrong thought by ignorance. They might have something against a specific president or whatever, and so they're targeting all the Muslims. And you happen to be there at that time. So it's not about you personally, right?
And the media is not helping at all
Mm-hmm.
either. Like if these people consume the media all the time, and there's this idea of like Muslims nowadays with the 9/11. Ever since 9/11, it's like going off, and now there's a lot more aggression, and you just remind yourself that this is not. They're not attacking you personally. They're attacking Islam, and remember that it was said that this was going to happen, that Islam is one of the most fought religion nowadays, and if anything this should make you feel proud. Honestly, it makes me feel really proud. Like I'm really proud of myself. And it's easier for shaitan to target you when you are alone. Like Allah said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold firmly to the rope of Allah all together and do not become divided. So
yeah. Before we end, I just wanted to mention something. So, Rana, you talked to us about your incident at the mall.
right.
And so, yeah, we do hear from here and then, like, negative stories of hijabis, but there are some positive ones too. And you've already told me one good incident that you had at the mall.
I want to share with you guys something that happened to me a few weeks ago. So again, to put you into context, I work at a stand at my local mall. It's subhanAllah, it's always at that mall where everything happens. So it happened a few weeks ago. It was a Sunday and I was closing. I was putting on my coat, on my way to leave, and all of a sudden a man came out of nowhere, at the absolute opposite of the grandpa we were talking about earlier. He came out of nowhere and he took out a $10 bill and he almost slammed it on the counter in front of me. Now at this point I'm looking at him like, what is going on? He tells me, here, this is because you are wearing the hijab correctly. I'm sure your parents are extremely proud of you, and I am so proud of you as well. My first reflex was to go after him and give him his $10 back, because I was always told never take money from strangers. And although part of me felt like he wasn't really a stranger, I still wanted to go after him. And so I leave the stand and I go after him, and then I see him stop and he comes back to me and he says, the fact that you had the audacity to wear the hijab at a time like this, at a place like this, I am so proud of you. And wallahi, I was only able to hold my tears until I got to my car, locked the door, and I started crying hysterically. I wasn't crying because that man was so nice to me. I was crying because I didn't feel like it was the man who was talking to me. I felt like it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who was talking to me through him. I felt like it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling me, I've seen your struggle. I see how hard you've been trying. I see all the dirty looks that you've been getting, the comments that you've been getting. I see how it's a struggle walking in abaya. I see all of that. And I just want to tell you, I am so proud of you. And wallahi, if that had happened a year ago, where I was still wearing the hijab not correctly and I didn't have a connection with Allah, if that same situation had happened, the same $10 bill, the same man, I would have been really happy, but knowing myself, I would have never cried as much as I did, because I would have missed the part where I felt where that message originally came from, that sweetness of knowing where it actually came from, directly from Allah. I would have missed that if I wasn't close to Allah. And so that's the difference, and that's what makes wearing the hijab, and not just hijab, praying and all the acts of worship, that's what makes it all worth it. When you're close to Allah, you feel that sweetness. So that, at the end of the day, that's what I thought about. I was like, subhanallah, I didn't have that connection back then. I would have been happy. I would have praised that man for a couple of hours and then move on with my day. But the fact that it literally hit my heart and my soul, and I was like, all of a sudden, I don't care about the dirty looks. I don't care how hard it is to walk in abaya. I don't care if I look like a stranger. Just feeling that sweetness, knowing that Allah's proud of me, knowing that Allah sees everything, sees what I'm going through, wallahi, it makes it all worth it. And if you ask me, would you do it again? 100% in a heartbeat, I would do it again. So remember, guys, whether you wear your hijab correctly or not, people will talk either way. So stay close to Allah, whatever challenge you go through, hijab or not hijab. Remember, Allah never ever burdens a soul beyond what it can bear.
Subhanallah. That is beautiful. And to summarize, we had a beautiful discussion. The main points that we want our listeners to remember is that Number one, we all need to work on understanding the bigger picture. Who is our creator? Why did he order all of the important acts of worship, including hijab? This is the foundation. This is where everyone needs to start from. For all the acts of worships, we need to understand beforehand for whom are we doing it and why. Number two, we need to stay close to others that do the same and or respect our choices. And this is where the importance of community comes in. So our halaqah, mashallah, we did build it purposefully for that and mainly for that. And so we do encourage our listeners who live in the greater Montreal area to try to come weekly to our halaqas. It's on Saturdays. We will link the Instagram page down below so that you can go and check. And we do want to invite more and more and more people. That's how our community can grow and how we can help each other in the ups and downs. Finally, we need to remember that good actions of worship and obedience, as diminished as they may seem in a world enslaved to man-made standards and values, are never lost with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to remember that we will get rewarded for every effort that is made in this world, and Allah promised it in His Quran. He said, indeed, he who is mindful of Allah and patient, then indeed Allah does not allow to be lost the reward of those who do good. Jazakumullah khair for staying until the end. We truly pray that this discussion can benefit you or someone else in your surrounding who needs to listen to it. So feel free to share it to someone who needs it. If you are watching this video on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you would like us to make a mini series about the hijab, because it's truly an important subject that deserves more episodes. Until our next episode, take care and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.